welcome to our American Mussar weekly gathering. This week, we are going to keep going on the soul trait of truth. It's been a nice kind of set where we've worked on loving kindness, and now we've been spending some time on truth, and it's about, truth with loving kindness, and there's a little bit of a trade-off there. And then whenever we get to the next soul trait, whether it's next week or the week after, I'm going to switch the order and we're going to go to silence, because silence also is highly connected to truth, deciding whether you're going to talk or not talk. So we'll kind of stay on, we'll stay thematic here. I know it's, yeah. So anyway, I will also be away in 2 weeks. I'm going to be visiting Syracuse, visiting my family. So we'll be here next week and then we'll be off the following week. All right, so now let's get started the way we always do, with a short meditation. So please kind of relax and get comfortable in your seat and close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass, like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Okay.
What did you say? I couldn't quite catch because it was so soft. What did you say after Shema?
Listen.
Oh, you just said the English. Okay.
Yes.
I was saying, what Hebrew word was that? Thank you.
Yes. It wasn't a Hebrew word at all. Hey, everybody. Oh, so many, nice to see Martin and Christo. We hadn't seen in a little while. And so many other familiar faces who we have. So we're on our third week of truth. Oops, sorry. I need to, I restarted my computer, which means I need to open the slides. And now we should be able to share. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so I know some of you haven't been here for the last couple of weeks or longer, but I think it's a question we can all answer. How did the truth show up for you? And where did you try any of the practices if you were here, or was there some other significant event in your Mussar journey? So let's get started with that. Who would like to share? Oh,
Okay, I'll jump in. Yeah, so I think this last week that there was some communications. Carrie's just finishing up something right now. She'll be here in just a minute or so. But there was some communications between her and me that I think were clarified because we were more truthful with each other in terms of, again, being true to our own understanding of whatever had happened. Usually is about communication. So being able to have a conversation about that is important to be, respond in a straightforward manner, which is straightforward is another way of saying truthful. So that's been interesting. It's been good. It's been really good. It's been, we had some counseling last year about communication, and it was helpful. And I think that the Mussar sort of gives it a different framework that still helps to um, sort of clarify what it is that we can do in our communication that's helpful. So
wonderful. I'm glad I was able to complement kind of some of the things you were already doing and focused on. Anyone else for how truth may have shown up or how Mussar might have shown up in the last week? Yes, Sarah.
So this might be a stretch. So I'm struggling with truth and communication because sometimes I say things in this relationship and I'm joking and he takes it seriously. And, so I was thinking to myself, well, there's that thing about sarcasm, and maybe I'm saying that I'm being playful, but maybe I'm being sarcastic. So I'll just give you an example. I can't remember, this was weeks ago. I don't even remember the conversation, but I said something like, okay, well, you're on probation. And he has brought this up a few times and he brought it up today. And I was like, it's like, I feel like he beats a dead horse, and I believe that I said it lightly and jokingly, and it obviously wasn't received that way. So sometimes you can say something, but the other person doesn't necessarily receive it in a good way. And I mean, I don't, so I was looking at that continuum of truth and hurtful speech versus eroding. Too little, it erodes, and too much, it's hurtful. I mean, and so I'm trying to figure out how to have communication, and it's hard when you're with a new person, that, I mean, and I consider myself a very sensitive person, but sometimes he just misinterprets what I'm saying. So I don't know if that's relevant to this conversation or not. I'll appreciate it. You can make any comments. Maybe it will help me.
Well, I think it is definitely true from your perspective, kind of what you're feeling. And, I'm just thinking like, I've been married for over 25 years. We've been together almost 30 years, and it's still hard to make ourselves understood sometimes. So it's like that much harder, when it's a new relationship, when you're getting to know each other, and sensitivities and speaking styles and whatever. And So I think like, um, you know, perhaps the way truth can come in is a conversation talking about the impact this subject has had on the both of you. Sounds like
Right.
he's really impacted by what you said that, and what I'm hearing is you're kind of impacted that that it keeps coming up.
And he brings stuff up that I say sometimes in jest, and then I'm over it. I think that maybe I need to think before I speak. I mean, I know that that's true. I know that I should not be so alert, say things, because it's misinterpreted. And and the last thing I want to do is say something hurtful, and obviously it hurts him. So
Well, it's a good preview for when we get to silence,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're all rooting for you, Sarah.
Hmm.
Joanne.
Yes, so I guess I had a couple of things. One is, I'm looking for the thing to lower my hand. Okay. So one is I was trying to give advice, and I get like, I don't know, like on a high horse or something. Like, I know that this is what you should do. And the other person, of course, doesn't respond too well to that. I know that also sarcasm is not a good method of communications. So I have found, and in fact, I I put a legitimate question to the executive board of the synagogue, because I guess we're going to have a meeting next week, and I don't even know if they were soliciting in ideas, but I saw somebody else did something, so I sent something, and I get a response from this one person. Well, what do you think we do all day? And unfortunately, my response to her didn't go to her. Maybe it's good actually that it didn't go to her. She didn't get, but it went to somebody else who I later said to her, this was not meant for you. It was meant to someone who made a sarcastic remark that I didn't appreciate, which is what I said in the response. It's like, I have no clue what to do unless you come to the meeting and tell us what you did, and this is not, communication is a continual problem at my synagogue. And I'm guilty because I don't ask enough questions. But some people seem to know a lot of stuff that I don't know about, and I know if they're getting it from somebody who's more, like on the inside of the executive board and is telling them, so they know who's sick and who's this, and it's like I'm like the last one to hear. So that was one thing. And the other thing about trying to give advice when it wasn't wanted. So I consulted with this Rebbitzin, who I respect a lot, and I know that my friend, who I was worried about and respects a lot, and she said, "You can't, you just can't do this. Just forget it. Just don't say anything. People will do what they are going to do. So, so I said, I understand. Okay. So I guess I'm ready for silence. That's
Sounds like we're ready for silence. I'm gonna just hold, Wendy and Karen, just hold on a sec. So I'm gonna share one slide, which is something we may not have gotten to, but it's very relevant to what Joanne is talking about. Rabbi Ilya said in the name of Rabbi Elazar, et cetera, just it is a mitzvah for a person to say that which will be heeded, so it is a mitzvah for a person not to say that which will not be heeded. One should not rebuke or offer advice or feedback to those who will be unreceptive to the message. So from the Rebbitzins' ears to the Talmud, that's kind of the perspective. Wendy.
Nice. Well, I happen to live with one of the most effective truth finders I've ever met. I think that he learned it from his mom because he's such a good listener. This is my husband. He's an attorney, which means he has to get to the truth a lot. And the way he does it is to reiterate what you say. Now, sometimes it might bug a person, but it always makes me understand what I'm saying. If I say something to him, he says it back to me, and then I can know whether or not he's understanding what I said. So that's the kind of communication that we've always had. It's a good way to do things. And it's just been really effective. But I guess you have to talk it over with somebody and say, hey, let's try this. Otherwise, it won't work. You'll just be reiterating what they say, and they need to do that back too. So, but you know, being an attorney, he's had to get the truth of the matter from people. And I watched him. He represented a man who lied to him, and he said to him, I can't actually help you if you don't tell me the truth. Ended up, so it's just he's like a good little example for me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it sounds like that's a communication that works for you. And yeah, if we're not truthful with someone, it's kind of hard for them to be helpful to you. Good lesson, Karen.
As I was listening to everybody, this thought came up, and I'm not really sure what to do with it, but I thought I would share it, which is
Okay.
that when people have different truths and they share them, that is often ripe for misunderstandings. And misunderstandings don't necessarily mean that the other person is not saying something that's truthful or that they're lying. It's just that there's not good communication there, which
Yeah.
goes back to exactly what Wendy said. And from the perspective of what I do, which is also needing to question people and find out if they're being truthful or not, we'll ask questions in different ways and ask people to repeat their answers, maybe slightly differently, to determine if there's, if the answer comes out pretty much the same, then they're being truthful. And if it's not exactly the same, we can probe further.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of what people think are untruths come about as a result of misunderstandings, which goes back to communication. So I just want to throw that out there, food for thought for the future.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. That's also what's making me think of is we hear something and it's not what we believe, or it's a different truth or a different perspective. It can be easy to jump to, oh, they're lying, or they're lying to me, or they're lying to themselves. And maybe they just disagree. It's like Sue.
So when Sarah was talking and she mentioned that maybe I should think before I speak, it reminded me of the think acronym, and I wrote this down, and I don't know if I remembered exactly correctly, but the letters THINK, well, the first one to be truthful, but is it also, before you speak, is it helpful? Is it insightful? I don't know if that's the right I word, but necessary. I think that's really important. Is it necessary? And kind. So I always think of when you're speaking and you're telling the truth, is it kind? Okay, well, sometimes you have to say the truth, it's not kind, but is it necessary? So that makes me think before I speak. It actually goes right back to that word. but it's, and then I just wanted to comment because I just was listening to Karen about, like my truth is not your truth. I mean, it's about communication, and we have different, what is the truth? There's that question as well. So.
Thank you, Sue. Shabana would be pleased that her acronyms have made such a big impact on the group. Paul, and then Wendy again.
Yeah, so I'm reminded of, this is probably 40 years ago, when I was on a panel. This is back when the nuclear freeze was a big deal, when putting missiles in Europe, the MX missiles was a big deal.
Oh.
And so I was on a panel as part of the group that was going to be doing civil disobedience out in Lawrence Livermore Labs in the East Bay. It was back in 1980, I think it was. And what was interesting to me is that I did a lot of research ahead of time about how people could have very different understandings about these missiles and what they were used for. And I was working at Hewlett Packard at the time. I went to the library and I did a lot of, went to, Missiles Today, they were different for the defense industry. There were different kind of magazines. And so I looked at them and I finally figured out, okay, so there is a base set of facts that are there. But what was really interesting is that the set of facts that each side of this, this battle of ideas was taking, they would take a different set of facts to create their view of the truth of what this really meant. And that was such an eye-opener to me, so that when I was on a panel with somebody who was working at Lawrence Livermore Labs, this was taking place in a Unitarian Universalist church. So it was like this, definitely a hallowed ground and very safe. But it was a very civil conversation. But it was easy to have that conversation then, because I knew that there was some facts that were in common, just that what we were choosing to focus on as being important facts were different. And I'm positive that same thing happened.
Hold on, I can walk.
So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, that's a really good illustration of how we can get to multiple truths, without there really being a falsehood. Wendy, and then we're going to move on.
I just have to tell you guys, I lied again, but I didn't mean to. It's like it's consequential. I was talking to the president of our board of directors, and she's always really busy, and she is pretty fast talker. And I said, I'm going to go to Sedona. And she said, she started talking about it, and I said, I haven't been there. And then she interrupted me and talked, and then she had to get off the phone. So she doesn't really know. I was going to say, I haven't been there since we moved here, because I have been there. So should I go back to her and explain it? I don't know. I have a tendency to just want to leave it, but she now believes a lie, but I didn't mean to tell her one.
I would give some examination to how you're labeling this. Like, is that, is something where someone interrupts you and they don't hear the full story and they get some of the information? Is that like, a dishonesty on your part versus they may not have all of the information? And is there any consequence to this? So I would just kind of go more for, I would sort of think in that regard. And is there, so anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents on this. Martin.
Yeah, let me turn up the.
It looks like you just muted yourself again.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with your comment, Greg. Yeah. Is it, is there any consequence to not correcting the story? So, yeah, I agree with you.
I think there could be consequence if we're all sitting around and I start talking about my second trip to Sedona was this and this and this, and she's in the room and she doesn't think I've ever been to Sedona. And if she remembers it, she might think that I didn't tell the truth, and then that could cause a problem, I think.
Okay, so then my next comment is that what's the price to correct the story then? If there's no price to correct it, what's the price then?
There's no price. I can go
Yeah,
correct.
okay. Yeah, then I think that's an affordable thing to do. That's my comment. Thank you.
All right, so let's, thank you, Wendy and Martin. So we have talked about, I'm gonna go back one slide, our truth spectrum, and we haven't talked that much about this mantra, be distant from falsehood. Now, it's actually in this week's Torah portion, which I think is kind of interesting and a good inspiration to look into this. And then when I was looking at commentaries, there was this section from, okay, there goes the cat. Section from Path of the Just by Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who is really an absolutely brilliant Mussar book, written in like the 14th, 15th century, something like that. Would someone like to unmute and read the first bullet?
I can do that.
Great.
To be distant from a falsehood is contrary to the will of the Creator and the attributes of the Creator's pious ones, as written. The righteous person hates a false word, from Mishlei 13:5. This is also what the Torah commands us. Keep far from a false matter. Shemot 23:7.
Shemot's the Hebrew word for Exodus, and Mishlei is the Hebrew for proverb.
Sorry.
So, what are the kind of two positions that are kind of laid out here? This language is a little bit thick. So on the one hand, or Karen.
That we aim for speaking truth as best we can, and we aim to stay away from falsehoods that we recognize as such, which I really like. So I think it's much easier to stay away from what we think is a falsehood or a lie, that end of the spectrum, than it is to be very close to the all truth end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. It is easier in many ways to kind of recognize a falsehood. Not always, but certainly when we do, there's a certain, okay, well, let's keep away from that. Eliana.
Where am I? There I am. Okay, two things that I thought of is one is that we are inherently only responsible for our own thoughts and selves and what we say. We're not responsible if someone else makes a falsehood.
Mm-hmm.
So if we see that that falsehood is harming someone else, I think that could be, we would be hating that false word and do something about it. In my work at the food bank, I check people in, and a lot of them lie. I mean, they're just lying. Yes, I need this more, I need more food, I have this many people. And I was really disturbed at first, but the other people our bank is so kind. It's like, it's not our business. It's not our business to get them on the right track. If they say they need it, we just give it. If they don't have an address, we put not at an address, and so that has really helped me with my truth. I'm not in charge of keeping them on the straight and narrow. I just accept, and I don't think that that's a falsehood that the Torah is talking about, because it's, you know, these are people that are in need. So anyway, that's what I was thinking.
I'm going to stop sharing for just a second to comment on that. So I think that's a really great point. And there is, because they may not be totally truthful, but you don't know like what their story is. And sometimes people are not truthful to kind of try to keep a level of dignity. Like,
Right, right.
yeah, and there was something that happened where I won't get into the whole situation, but this apology email came out and the person said, "Oh, I'm really sorry that this happened. It was because of this, this, and this, and it won't happen again." And I read it and I'm like, it doesn't add up. Like what happened and the explanation, they don't add up. But the explanations that I came up with were probably not something that they wanted to share, like if that was true. And so it's like, was the apology genuine? Was this person going to change their behavior? That's kind of what I'm hoping to see, but I don't need to like embarrass them or give them the third degree or exactly figure out like what is going on. That's kind of how truth sort of showed up for me, because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter to me. Like,
Mhm.
what matters to me is, are you going to show up or not? It doesn't matter to me if you don't show up, why you don't show up. So that's kind of sort of how I came down on that. Hey, Lori, nice to see you. Okay, so I'm going to pull the slide back up because I think there's another part of this that it's kind of touched on by what Eliana and I were talking about, but it's like, the righteous person hates a false word. And sometimes, maybe when I was younger, I would have been like, this person's lying or this person's not telling the whole truth. And let's get to the bottom of this. And because, maybe I would have strayed into self-righteousness. It's like, you've got to be straight with people. And, it's like, well, maybe not, maybe that's not, oh, well, I wasn't there because I had to go to this isn't the case. I had to go to the food bank, so I couldn't be there. Well, I don't need to know that. That's none of my business. So it's a little bit of or I can't remember if I wrote this in the email or not, do I need to refute every perceived falsehood on Facebook? Because it makes me angry and I hate seeing, falsehoods. Well, that's, or is it I've taken the last few years, last 4 or 5 years of taking, I'm just going to be distant from that. Like, I'm going to keep my mental distance. I'm not going to get all wrapped up in someone's kind of world that I don't agree with. So the second bullet I think is interesting too, and I will just read this. Notice the verse did not say guard against falsehood, but rather keep far from a false matter. To rouse us on the great extent, one must distance and flee from falsehood. So what do we think? What's the difference between guarding against falsehood as opposed to staying distant from falsehood? Yeah, Sue, and then Marjorie.
I really like that. And it prefaced by what you said, Greg, in terms of not getting involved. So when you say guard versus keeping away or keeping far, to me, it makes it's the opposite. So to me, the idea of keeping far means running away, running away from something.
Yeah.
Whereas guarding, you're right there and you're guarding it. But when you keep away, you're not engaging. And I love that about Facebook because I don't put anything political on there and I don't comment on anything political. So I keep far away from that. But if you're going to guard something, you are right there. You're at the gate, you are guarding. So to me, that's the difference between guarding and keeping far away.
Thank you. Marjorie and then Ron.
Okay, it is, for me, it's always gonna be out there. There are gonna be untruths and falsehoods that are always gonna be out there. And I've just learned to, again, I think for me, it goes back to shtika, which is silence, is like, that's how I guard against it, is like, don't repeat it. Don't engage with it. You know, I'm gonna hear it, but I don't have to pass it on. And back to the whole internet thing, delete, delete, delete. You know, you're gonna keep reading. There's so much. And why do I delete? Sometimes, you know, some of the headers could suck you in, and I'm like, just don't even read it. You know, it just doesn't affect me. So I just I've just learned to just walk away, hear it, and just let it go.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that's really harmful, then I think earlier in this conversation, we've brought up the point of not confronting, just asking the person, what do you mean by that? You know, trying to get some clarity from the source of what I would think is a falsehood. But again, you know, I don't want to escalate anything and I'm not going to change their mind. There are some situations that this is what a person feels is the truth. Oh, God.
You okay?
That's a Minnesota thing where our emergency thing went off.
They're experiencing a severe disruption in something. Oh, well.
Yeah, not to worry. But all our phones just went off.
Oh, okay. Wow. So I just completely lost my train of thought, and that's the truth.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Thank
No,
you.
yeah, like just discerning from, you know, like don't, it's not worth it to me to try to get somebody to change their mind if they think their truth is theirs and mine is mine, unless it's even if it's gonna really hurt somebody else, then that's where you just let it go.
Yeah.
Don't escalate. Okay.
Ron, you had your hand up before.
Yes, I was just going to say that if I wanted to really distance myself from falsehood, I'd never be able to read the news again. I'd never be able to watch the news again. You can't escape from falsehood anymore. I wish it were possible, Greg. And it only gets worse when you try to combat somebody on Facebook or anything like that. That's an impossible journey that you're taking when you do that. So I like the sentiment, but I don't know that it's possible anymore.
Yeah. No, I think that really, you bring up a really great point, and it's a good challenge. And I guess I might wonder, you know, again, what does distancing from falsehood mean? It's not exactly the same as eliminate falsehood from your life. You know, maybe it's a mental distancing. Maybe it's like on Shabbat, I won't read the news or Facebook because that will just upset me. And, so I will distance, maybe it's on Shabbat, I'm going to distance myself from things that cause stress. And among those so it's a really good point you bring up. Let's, I have another thing I want to, I see Frank jumping in there, or Linda. You are unmuted. Can't hear you. Huh. Okay. Well, we'll hope that will get worked out a little bit later. So there was an email correspondence. I was in a few months ago, and this is not the slide I want to be on. And I had to say, is it the same thing to say there are multiple truths and the truth is variable and malleable. Are those the same? How so, or why not? I'll put this in the chat too. And there was a question I got because someone said, well, you wrote in your book that the truth is malleable. And I'm like, I don't think that's what I said, but I think I said there are multiple truths. But I want to know what you think. Are they the same or distant? Wendy.
Sorry, no, I was going to answer that. I was just had a thing to say about Facebook. It might be an opportunity when something like that comes up on Facebook. I don't really use Facebook much, but just going back to what I've learned from the person I live with, I watch him say, you said, or you wrote, and then he reiterates. And you know, sometimes it brings to light for that person that that's not necessarily so, and makes them think about it. But then that's the end of it. They don't continue to say anything. But as far as the malleable and multiple truths, I think they're different. I think they're different.
Thank you. Paul and then Christo. And maybe we'll try to go a little more speed round here so we have a little time for a breakout room too.
Yeah, short version is the story that I told before is really about multiple perspectives based on selective, selecting the parts of the data that you really want to focus on that you think are important. And that's different than malleable. Malleable is like, having my grandson come up with reasons why he wants to have a toy, and you challenge those, and he has a different reason that's also very important, but now that's the new truth. So that's a malleability there that's more about being very egocentric about it. So
thank you, Paul. Christo.
Okay, so I don't see how these two statements are the same. The first one, the shorter one, that there are multiple truths. It doesn't say how many truths there are. It says there are multiples. The second one says the truth singular is variable and malleable. Some things that are true for some people are not true for others. It does not mean the one group is lying, especially if they have some kind of documented evidence of it. And rest of the thought, of course, ADHD is back. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely part of the picture. Joanne.
Yeah, I guess I was going to say something similar to what Crystal said. That I don't understand how there can be more. I actually don't understand how there can be more than one truth at the same time, except, I think it's more opinion than actual truth or what people want to believe. And I don't know about the truth being malleable. That doesn't sound right either. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Eliana.
Well, I have to believe that there are some absolute truths. I just have to. Even in our Constitution, they say it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. It's a matter of do other people accept my truth? I think it's all in the eye of the beholder. So that's my short version.
Thank you. So some short answers. I think that like multiple truths can come into play if we've probably all had a situation where we were in a conversation with somebody and then you both walk away with different ideas about what the discussion was. It's like, and then it's not like nobody is telling a lie there, but there's just different versions of events. And I think for me, the idea of like malleable truth is really about getting much closer to falsehood. For me, it's about like manipulation, and it's about I'm going to twist the facts. And the example that Paul gave, that's kind of the way we center things. But if someone is really they could deliberately just cherry pick something which says the exact opposite, which gives the exact opposite idea of what we thought, or of what the spirit of like the whole report was about. Like, smoking can cause cancer, but if, the tobacco company takes one line that says, some shade of there's no cancer link out of this whole paper about how smoking causes cancer, then that's like manipulating. Marjorie.
I think about there was a book written by he was British, and he wrote a book about the Holocaust denier, and the woman that took him to court, or in testimony, he kept picking out like certain things that could prove that the Shoah never existed. And to me, that is, I'd have to see the screen again with your quote. But there are, I think somebody said there's absolute truths. And like there are just some things that are, I don't know what category this person would fall in.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some things, the Holocaust happened. That is not, that's the truth.
It's hard, concrete evidence, and yet people are saying, oh, it was a lie. And it's like that. I don't know. I can't, without seeing the categories that you had posted.
Yeah.
I can't put them into, there we go. You put it in the chat. Okay. The truth is variable. Well, I don't think that would apply in either one. But I guess to the person people that believe in things, those are multiple truths. To somebody who's a denier, or I look at some of the,
yeah, I think you're making a good point. I want us to have at least a little bit of time for some breakout rooms. So I'm going to put our prompt in the chat, and this is from Rabbi Carol Glass. And she talks about there's what you can detect and what remains undetected as part of the truth. Some things are just hidden from us. Like maybe, this example I was giving where the apology email didn't add up. Something is hidden from me. And the question is, so to talk about, if you're in an intense disagreement with somebody, what's maybe some hidden truth that they have access to that you don't? Or maybe in a more garden variety conflict in a relationship, how might this perspective help you, with that? So I am going to open the breakout rooms. I see your note, Frank, so I'll put you in a group of 3. And we hope that you'll be able to communicate, or you can, okay. So looking for maybe some truth that you don't have access to help you in conflicts.
No, you never know. You just don't.
Right. Hey, sorry, everyone. I know that I'm sure you would have liked more time. We just got a little bit squeezed there. But we do have a couple minutes left. So this is a good chance to kind of share any ideas that came up or incomplete thoughts that you couldn't get out that you want to bring to the group. Nancy.
Yeah, I didn't speak earlier, but I guess I will now. I think what really has hit me through all the discussion is that falsehood, truth, or whatever really has to do with judgment or an opinion. Because who am I to judge whatever you're saying? I would rather the whole thing with what Sarah brought up at the beginning is to, if I have a question or I don't understand something, clarify it immediately. Get it out in the open.
Mm.
But if it's a complete lie, where you know it's a complete lie, you caught the person, then I would lose trust. I would, then I would have to reevaluate the relationship. But to me, it all revolves around, who am I to judge my brothers and sisters about their truth and what they're saying? Because I really don't know what's going on in their head. So it really, to me, it comes down to judgment.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. And in some of the conflict resolution work that I did, where people have these very deep political differences, if you really get to know someone, it's like, oh, they have that belief because they got, mugged as a child, and so therefore that kind of led them to believe what they believe. Oh yeah.
Yeah, what I had brought up, and it's very interesting because I guess, and I like how Wendy replied to it, is there is multiple truths. For example, there's a conflict with my sister right now. She has one belief. Well, this is this way, and this is how I feel about it, and this is the truth. But I actually worked at a place that she's complaining about, and I know the internal works and whatever, and this is, and it's like, what do you do when you have two truths? And I basically said, I understand where you're coming from, and it makes sense. What I know about this place, though, because I worked there, etc., and it was like, whoop, I got hung up on, but it is confusing as to when you have two truths, how do you deal with it to say, I accept your truth, but I have a different one.
Yeah. That's the challenge. And I think that is we'll give you the last word for today and use this as a moment to once again close as we began. We'll close our sacred space with a short meditation. So once again, inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And now let your breathing take a nice leisurely rhythm. Maybe let the exhales be a little bit longer. Take a moment of gratitude for everyone who is on this journey with us, whether they're with us today in Zoom, with us other weeks, or parts of our lives outside of this community. We're all in this together. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Thank you all so much for being here. Next week, we will be jumping ahead in the book to the Soul Trade of Silence. We'll do a couple of weeks on that. And I will be away in 2 weeks as I'm visiting my family, but I will look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye,
Thanks,
Paul.
everyone.
Buddy.